In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, April 3rd, here in South Korea. President Yoon Suk-yeol shares hopes for direct dialogue with junior doctors over their collective action, while government officials extend their emergency healthcare arrangement for 1 month more. Meanwhile, North Korea says it successfully test-fired a new mid- to long-range solid-fuel hypersonic missile early Tuesday morning under the supervision of its leader, Kim Jong-un. And beyond the peninsula, US President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping addressed issues of cooperation as well as contention during the latest talks over the phone on Tuesday. The top office says President Yoon Suk-yeol has proposed a meeting with protesting junior doctors to personally listen to their grievances, while government officials opt for telemedicine to ease current restrictions to healthcare. Our Choi Soo-young has the latest.
Amid the ongoing dispute over an increase in the medical school enrollment quota, the government has also decided to temporarily expand telemedicine services to local public health centers across South Korea. During Wednesday's briefing, the government said the measure is part of an emergency medical system to fill potential medical service gaps in certain areas like islands. The health ministry said diagnoses and prescriptions for minor illnesses can be obtained at 246 public health centers nationwide.
The current procedures for non-face-to-face medical care, such as sending prescriptions to pharmacies, will apply equally. This will make it more convenient for people who have been using local public health centers for purposes such as healthcare management and prevention.
Furthermore, the government will go forward with a plan to increase the number of full-time professors in medical schools nationwide by 1,000 by 2027. Meanwhile, South Korea's presidential office said Tuesday that President Yoon Suk-yeol wishes to meet with the junior doctors directly to engage in constructive dialogue, adding that the office is always open to the Korean citizens. The health ministry echoed those sentiments, calling on doctors to engage in talks and suggest reasonable measures for cooperation.
The president wants to meet with doctors who are involved in collective action and hear directly from them. The government asked the medical community to engage in communication so that reasonable discussions can take place.
Following Yoon's proposal on Tuesday, the Medical Professors Association of Korea said that the president is the only one who can make a breakthrough in the conflict. The MPAK also asked the president to meet with junior doctors unconditionally. However, despite continued appeals from the government, doctors have yet to respond. So far, there have been no reports of trainee doctors returning to their hospitals, and only 10% of the interns newly accepted this year had registered by Tuesday, the deadline for the new employment registration. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
And in a disturbing pattern that has been taking shape in recent times, a day after firing a missile into the East Sea, North Korea today confirmed its launch, claiming it was the first testing of the Hwasong-16 missile. Our foreign affairs correspondent Peunji has details.
North Korea has claimed that on Tuesday it successfully test-fired a new type of solid-fuel hypersonic missile. The regime's state-run media said Wednesday that its leader Kim Jong-un, who oversaw the first test launch of the Hwasong-16 intermediate-range missile the day before, said the regime has now turned all of its missiles into solid fuel, nuclear-capable, and with warhead control. The North said Tuesday's test was aimed at verifying the reliability of the weapon system and that it traveled around 1,000 kilometers. This comes a day after the South Korean military said it detected a ballistic missile fired from Pyongyang and that it traveled about 600 kilometers before falling into the East Sea. North Korea vowed to develop hypersonic missiles at the start of 2021 and conducted a first test of the missile in September the same year. Developing hypersonic weapons was one of the regime's 5 main tasks under a 5-year military plan announced at the start of 2021, alongside creating solid-fuel ICBMs and a nuclear submarine. Hypersonic missiles travel at 5 times the speed of sound, which is more than 6,000 kilometers per hour, so their speed and unpredictable flight paths make them difficult to track and intercept. Last month, the regime claimed the success of a ground test of a solid-fuel engine for a new type of intermediate-range hypersonic missile. Intermediate-range missiles are capable of targeting places like Okinawa in Japan, 1,400 kilometers away from Pyongyang, or Guam, which is 3,500 kilometers away. And solid-fuel missiles can be launched quickly with little preparation, compared to liquid-fuel ones.
Since North Korea pledged to develop hypersonic missiles in 2021, it has gone through a lot of trial and error. For the first time, North Korea has tested a specific form of hypersonic missile that it's been aiming for. It will likely test-fire the missile 2 to 3 more times.
Experts say the North is likely to start developing hypersonic ICBMs, which are longer-range missiles that are aimed at targeting the U.S. mainland. 배은지, Arirang News.
And amid those very concerns, Seoul's foreign ministry has slapped sanctions on a pair of Russian ships, as well as on 2 Russian companies and their respective owners, for broadly assisting North Korea's weapons development and trade. Our Kim Dami reports.
South Korea has newly added 2 Russian vessels to its sanctions list for their involvement in arms transfers by North Korea. Announcing this on Tuesday, the foreign ministry stressed that the government and the international community have continuously urged North Korea and Russia to halt such military cooperation. The Russian vessels, the Lady R and the Angara, were placed under sanctions for shipping a large number of containers filled with military supplies between Pyongyang and Moscow.
South Korea has announced sanctions as military cooperation between Russia and North Korea, including arms transfers, is a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions. And these actions can be a serious threat to the Korean Peninsula, as well as global peace and security.
Tuesday's sanctions also included 2 Russian companies and the heads of both, accused of helping North Korea earn foreign currency by illegally sending its information technology workers overseas. The Russian firm Intellect LLC was put on the list for providing documents of identification needed for North Korean workers in Russia. The other company, Sojestvie, was sanctioned for illegally helping North Korean workers enter Russia and to stay there. Meanwhile, the U.S. also assessed Monday that Pyongyang continues to provide military support to Moscow amid the prolonged war in Ukraine. When asked if North Korea was still supplying Russia with weapons during a press briefing, Pentagon Deputy Spokesperson Sabrina Singh said the partnership between the 2 sides continues to flourish. She added that while Washington has released declassified information on North Korea-Russia military cooperation before, it will not reveal details of recent shipments. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
On the international diplomatic front, as part of efforts to keep communication channels open, U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping held talks over the phone on Tuesday to address, among a host of issues, North Korea's hostile weapons ambitions. Our Lee Seung-jae covers this latest interaction.
Amid growing concerns over North Korea's continued missile and nuclear threats, U.S. President Joe Biden and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping held phone talks on Tuesday. According to the White House, Biden stressed Washington's enduring commitment to the complete denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, adding that the talks between the 2 leaders were candid and constructive. The White House also said that Biden reiterated the U.S. stance of engaging in diplomacy with North Korea while taking further steps to deter further provocations by the regime. Tuesday's talks also came amid worries that Russia's veto of a UNSC resolution to extend the mandate of the expert panel overseeing the implementation of North Korean sanctions will lead to a potential erosion of the sanctions regime. The 2 leaders also discussed the ongoing issues regarding trade. Biden said the U.S. will prevent its advanced technology from being used to undermine America's national security, adding it will continue to limit China's access to key technology, such as advanced semiconductors, as part of its de-risking policy. The U.S. leader also raised issues over what the U.S. says is China's unfair trade policies and non-market economic practices. The Oval Office said that the 2 leaders also reviewed and encouraged progress from their summit in San Francisco earlier this year, including anti-drug cooperation, ongoing military-to-military communication, talks to address AI-related risks, and continuing efforts on climate change. Biden and Xi welcomed ongoing efforts to maintain open channels of communication as U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Secretary of State Antony Blinken are set to visit China within the next few days. This will also be followed by talks between the defense chiefs of the two countries, as well as a visit by high-ranking Chinese officials to the U.S. in the near future. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back on the local front, the Yoon administration is planning to earmark 1 trillion won, roughly $740 million for R&D next year. Speaking to members of the media earlier on Wednesday, Senior Secretary for Science Park Sang-uk claimed the upcoming budget would be the government's biggest ever and aims to transform Korea into a first mover in advanced technology, including artificial intelligence, biotech and quantum technology. Plans are also in the works to put in place tangible financial support for scientists, as well as efficient review and approval procedures. Samsung E&A and GS E&C have secured a $7.2 billion project to expand a gas plant in Saudi Arabia. According to the top office on this Wednesday, the deal is the biggest to be sealed by Korean companies in Saudi Arabia and reportedly follows President Yoon Suk-yeol's sales diplomacy in the region. Now, he made a state visit to Riyadh last October and agreed to boost cooperation in infrastructure. Saudi oil company Aramco says the project will raise the Fadhili gas plant's processing capacity by over 60% by the year 2030 compared to the year 2021. Lawmakers across the isle landed in Jeju Island on this Wednesday to mark the 76th anniversary of the April 3rd incident, when some 25,000 to 30,000 civilians lost their lives amid government suppression. Ruling People Power Party floor leader Yoon Jae-ok and main opposition Democratic Party leader Lee Jae-myung partook in the official ceremony held at the Jeju April 3rd Peace Park, along with the leaders of their respective satellite parties and other minor parties. The congregation comes exactly 1 week ahead of Korea's general election. Over in Taiwan, an earthquake measuring well above 7 on the Richter scale hit Taiwan's eastern coast Wednesday morning, triggering tsunami alerts across the islands of southern Japan and the Philippines. The epicenter was reportedly some 7 kilometers south of the city of Hualien, home to about 350,000 people. The latest quake is the strongest to strike Taiwan in 25 years, and reports of casualties and collapsed infrastructure continue to pour in as we speak. An Israeli airstrike that killed 8 workers of the World Central Kitchen has raised the level of global grievance against assaults in Gaza to new heights, our Ian Jin reports.
On Tuesday, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called an Israel Defense Forces attack that killed 7 aid workers the day before unconscionable and devastating, while world leaders have also asked Israel to explain its action.
The devastating Israeli airstrikes that killed World Central Kitchen personnel yesterday bring the number of aid workers killed in this conflict to 196, including more than 175 members of our own UN staff. This is unconscionable, but it is an inevitable result of the way the war is being conducted.
The World Central Kitchen confirmed on Tuesday that 7 of its team members traveling in a deconflicted zone in Gaza were killed. They were in 2 armored vehicles with the WCK logo visible and an additional vehicle. The strike killed a Palestinian man, as well as citizens of Australia, Britain, and Poland, and a dual citizen of the United States and Canada. The aid charity WCK immediately suspended operations at 68 community kitchens where food was being distributed in Gaza. Guterres also said the attack was yet more evidence of the need for a ceasefire.
It demonstrates yet again the urgent need for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages, and the expansion of humanitarian aid into Gaza as the Security Council demanded in its resolution last week. The resolution must be implemented without delay.
Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the airstrike a mistake, while the Israeli military pledged to conduct an investigation into the incident. Some of Israel's closest allies, including the United States, condemned the attack, with U.S. President Joe Biden saying that it demonstrated that Israel was not doing enough to protect civilians. Yoon, Arirang News.
In other news, government officials in Jeju Island are exploring the adoption of new office environments aimed at boosting productivity and overall workplace morale. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin explains.
It's a typical workday on Jeju Island. Inside the 7-story building in Jeju City, Kim Sung-uk is busy at work. Kim works for the Jeju provincial government, but today, instead of heading to the government complex, he's here at a second office. So this is a 소통 center or communication center in Jeju City. So here, people can read books and try out a wide range of cultural activities like carpentry and cooking, but for some, this is another office. Kim is among the more than 60 participants in the Jeju Special Self-Governing Province's Another Office project. In March, Jeju became the first local government in Korea to launch this initiative.
The office environment has a profound impact on human behavior, cognition, and psychology. Yet, the public sector tends to be rigid, making it challenging to foster cognitive flexibility and creativity. So we started exploring alternative office spaces outside.
Currently, there are 13 of these offices across the island, 8 in Jeju City and 5 in Seogwipo City. About 800 level 6 or below Jeju government employees are eligible to apply. They just have to select a date and location and sign up a week before. For them, it's an opportunity to enhance their work efficiency, which is why Kim Sung-uk has already used the program 3 times.
Tasks like documenting last year's work require my full attention. In the office, I sometimes spend the whole day on something that could be done in 1 or 2 hours. Especially when my boss calls, I help out colleagues or receive multiple phone calls. So I saw another office as the perfect solution for staying focused. Communicating with my colleagues is not a problem as I can do so via phone, video calls, and online messaging.
For the government, there is no financial burden as all of these offices are public or government-owned buildings. While Jeju is the only region that has adopted this system so far, this reflects a growing trend in Korea's workplace culture.
After COVID, many companies have adopted remote working or working outside traditional office settings. Local governments, particularly outside the major cities, see this trend as a way to attract talent and boost their economies.
Throughout the year, Jeju plans to open up more workspaces and expand participation so that more people can have their own another office. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News, Jeju.
Korea's Kimchi Day, which falls on November 22nd, is also celebrated on a national level over in Argentina, thanks to the efforts of one former lawmaker there. My colleague Kim Bo-kyung sat down with her.
Kimchi is an integral part of Koreans' everyday lives, a food that represents national identity. South Korea in 2020 declared November 22nd as Kimchi Day to raise awareness globally about this Korean staple. Ever since then, cities and regions in other countries have declared their own Kimchi Day. But in 2023, Argentina became the first to do so at a national level. This was possible thanks to kimchi lover and former Senator Magdalena Solari Quintana, who led a bill being passed in her country's Senate and House. During her recent visit to South Korea to become a global ambassador promoting kimchi, she cited its health benefits as one of the reasons for its increasing popularity.
People in Argentina enjoy beef, so fat intake is very high, so kimchi is a great match. Argentinian people are very interested in health along with the effectiveness of probiotics. This has naturally led to kimchi's popularity.
The bill was introduced in the Senate in July 2021, and it took almost 2 years for it to pass the lower house. Magdalena personally persuaded other lawmakers, and she says her will to show respect to the first-generation Korean immigrant community in Argentina was her motivation.
When they settled in Argentina, they tried eating Korean food fused with Argentina's. It is our way to show gratitude towards the Korean immigrant society that's been living here for 60 years.
When asked about ways to make kimchi be recognized more, she suggested Korea should look at kimchi in a different way and to actively use Korean roots based in other countries.
It's not common to have a dish that everybody, regardless of social class, enjoys. The Korean immigrant community is very well formed in every corner of America. If Korea uses an asset like this along with social media, kimchi could be recognized more.
Hoping that Kimchi Day becomes the foundation for boosting bilateral ties, she vows to make kimchi more well-known in Argentina. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. In Senegal, the country's fifth and youngest president was sworn in on Tuesday. 44-year-old newly elected leader Bassirou Diomaye Faye said he will answer to the results of the ballot box that express a profound desire for systematic change in Senegal. Faye defeated Amadou Ba, the candidate of outgoing President Macky Sall's ruling coalition in the March 24th election. The former tax inspector, who was released from an 11-month prison term just before the presidential election, promised change in Senegal. He had been arrested and sentenced for social media posts critical of the previous administration. His campaign included pledges on anti-corruption and better management of the country's natural resources in the region of West Africa, with a history of political turbulence, including coups and attempted coups. In Turkey, at least 29 people have been killed in a fire that broke out at a nightclub in central Istanbul during daytime renovation work on Tuesday local time. Istanbul Governor Davut Gül said that the fire broke out just after midday, while the cause remains yet unclear. Firefighters and emergency workers surrounded the charred entrance of the club to try and contain the fire, while 3 prosecutors investigating the blaze ordered 5 people to be detained. The newly re-elected mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, said later the same day that the club had not applied for the correct construction permit. The masquerade club was occupying 2 floors in the basement of a 16-story residential building in the city's central Gayrettepe district. One of the oldest books known to mankind, the Crosby-Schoen Codex, created around 250 to 350 AD, is expected to fetch over $2.6 million at a Christie's auction in London this June. One of the earliest known texts of the 2 books of the Bible, the first epistle of Peter and the book of Jonah, consists of 104 pages and was written in Coptic on papyrus by one scribe over a period of 40 years at one of the very first Christian monasteries founded by Saint Pachomius in Upper Egypt. It was discovered in Egypt in the early 1950s and has had 2 owners, the University of Mississippi and the Norwegian manuscript collector Dr. Martin Schoen. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Spring rain soaks most of Korea today. Mountainous regions on Jeju could see up to 60 millimeters of heavy showers, with a heavy rain advisory being issued there. But the capital area will see spotty rain through mid-afternoon. Rain clouds will let up from the northern parts of the country, so those in Jeju and Jeollanam-do should brace for on and off heavy rain through tonight. Rain brings down the highs in certain parts of Korea. Temperatures could go down nearly 10 degrees lower in some of the southern regions, and that's including over in Daegu. Meanwhile, Gwangju gets up to 17 degrees, Seoul topping out at 20 degrees, with a dry weather advisory in place in the capital. But today's rain should help to ease the dryness in the air. Fine spring weather returns tomorrow with brighter skies, and temperatures should stay above normal for the next 5 days, getting close to peak cherry blossom season in the capital area. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And on that note, we wrap up our afternoon newscast for this Wednesday. Coming up right after this break is our daily panel session. Do stay with us.